And he's also going to be sharing with us about a really dynamic ministry that he's a part of. I've already alluded to the fact about that, but Aaron, tell us what hat you join us wearing today.
So I lead worship on the streets. So it's a ministry that kind of does what it says on the tin. It takes worship, musical worship, out onto the streets, so that people who don't know Jesus can experience something of his love and power through musical worship.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to delve into more of what Worship on the Streets is all about a little later in the conversation, but we want to get to know you and your story in a little more depth first. So, but how did you become a Christian? Was faith part of family life growing up, or did it come later?
So it's kind of a bit of a mix, really. So my mum was a Christian when I was growing up, and my dad was actually a Muslim. And so with that, there was this, we weren't really allowed to go to a church, we weren't allowed to go to a mosque. There was a kind of, we just had to find our own way with it. That was the kind of the decision that was made. And so I was aware of God. I believed in God, but didn't really explore it. I wasn't that curious about it at all. And then my turning point was when I actually left home and I went to university. And just, to be really honest, I didn't like it at all. I had a really just challenging time there. Missed my friends back home. I used to be in bands back home, missed playing music with my friends, and just struggled just being just away from it all. And I was ready to go home. I was ready to pack it in and just say, I've given this a go. I just want to be back home. And my parents were supportive of that. They said, that's totally fine. You need to make your own decision. But my mum wrote me a letter and she said, we totally understand it's a challenging time for you, but have you tried praying about it? And at that time I hadn't. So I thought, well, maybe this is the last shot. I'll give it a go. And so I remember kneeling down on the side of my bed, because that's what you do when you pray. And I just really simply said, God, if you're there, I need some help. And that was it. And I think it was the next day, I was walking to a lecture, so a few minutes walk from my halls. And between the halls and the lecture theatre, a guy came up to me and he said, do you have a few minutes? I'd love to tell you about Jesus. And so we got chatting, and I was like, oh, yeah, I know a little bit about Jesus, but explained about my mum, but not really know much about him. And so we became friends. We started meeting up for coffees. He was luckily into the same music as me, and we started reading the Bible together. And I think that was the first point of meeting a guy who was a Christian, my own age, similar interests. And that just really helped me kind of find my own bearings with it. And I eventually ended up going on an Alpha course, became Christian there. And then, things have never been the same since.
Yeah, so talk to us a bit about some of those bands that you enjoyed listening to back then that you had in common with this friend.
Yeah, so my favourite band was Nirvana. So I grew up in the 90s with the Seattle grunge stuff. So that was my main inspiration. Before that, I was into music, listening to my dad's records, Cat Stevens, that kind of thing. But then kind of found my own way with Guns N' Roses, a bit of hip hop as well. But when I heard Nirvana, I was like, this is what I want to do. I just thought, I want to learn guitar. I started listening to his Kurt Cobain's music and just trying to sing like him. I was my first ever band was a Nirvana copy band, and it was just like, that changed everything for me, really. And I just love the simplicity of it. I love the passion behind it. I love that these guys weren't trained musicians. They were just like a bunch of friends like us, like I was with my friends, just giving it a go, and they changed the world through music. So just gave me a real insight into the power of music.
Oh, you've certainly brought back a few memories for me and some of my friends from Youth Fellowship jumping up and down to Smells Like Teen Spirit and many others, and watching the MTV Unplugged gig as well.
Yeah, my favourite album.
Feel like distant memories now, but that raises the question, Aaron, at what point did you kind of first come across Christian praise and worship music? Because most of it doesn't sound much like Nirvana.
No, it doesn't. I think so. When I became a Christian, I then felt comfortable going to a CU. I tried it before I was a Christian. It just wasn't for me. I became a Christian, kind of understood what was going on, and became friends with a few people who were just really influential for me. Just they welcomed me in. They got music outside of the Christian circles, but also were passionate about music within the Christian circles. So they invited me to join the CU worship band. So playing bass guitar and drums first of all, and just having conversations with them about what music is, in the Christian context, really. And I started just exploring it by myself. Probably the main way I connected with God in my own time was just playing songs. So, learning Tim Hughes songs back then, and Matt Redman songs, and just spending probably hours just playing to God my own songs. That songs that I was writing. I turned to the Psalms, obviously, started turning them into songs as well. And just for me, it was the main way I connected with God, really. Just a sense of freedom, a sense of intimacy with God, and just putting to words things that I was feeling or experiencing or hoping for, just as a way of praising him, kind of prayer, all sorts of things, really. Yeah.
And the majority of our listeners this morning will acknowledge that worship is a whole lifestyle. It's not just about the music, but obviously music is a huge part of how we're able to express our feelings, our thanks to God in many different ways. And we'll all have different songs that we connect with. We're quite comfortable worshiping and praising God in a congregational setting, whether it be in a church or a midweek meeting, or maybe at a conference or a festival of some kind. Some of us are very comfortable worshiping and praising through music in the comfort of a private space, whether that be sat at the piano in the living room or a music room if we've got one, whether that's singing along to UCB2 radio as we're traveling along somewhere. We're not so comfortable in taking it outside of those spaces. So talk to us about the vision God gave you in 2014 that kind of acts as the initial catalyst towards worship on the streets.
So 2014, my wife and I were in a transition period. My wife was studying, doing a PhD, so we knew that that's what she was focusing on. For me, I was in the middle of just working out kind of job stuff and calling. And at that point, I'd spent years being a kids and youth worker, doing a lot of mission around Peckham, actually, where we were living. And so really passionate about mission, but also passionate about worship, kind of doing that as a volunteer in church and events and holiday clubs, that kind of thing. But I'd always had this desire to make worship more at the forefront of my working life, if you like. And I sensed that this was a time that God was saying, that's what's going to happen. Didn't really know what context that would be, but in that middle of that time, I was having a rest one afternoon, and I had what I would just describe, as a literal vision. It was almost like it was a dream, but I was awake, so I could see things in front of my eyes, like watching a small cinema screen. And what I was watching was my wife and I were in a big conference setting. So imagine 2,000 people in a room, all worshipping Jesus. The Holy Spirit is moving. People are kind of experiencing his love and his power, his healing, getting set free. And it was just amazing to be a part of. And then in the vision, the sound cut out, but the band was still singing. The congregation was still singing, but for Rachel and I, we just couldn't hear anything. And then suddenly we heard this two questions. What about the people who can't afford this? And what about the people who don't know about this? And it was as if like we both knew what those questions were saying to us. We looked at each other and we ran through the congregation. We jumped up onto the stage and we found a door at the side of the stage and we opened it, and thousands of people from the street started running in, and they got caught up in the worship as well, experiencing the same thing that everybody else had been, the love, the power, the healing of Jesus. And then it stopped. So I've never experienced anything like that since. Never had anything like it before. But I knew there was something about making worship accessible to people who would, as I say, would never go into a church, never go to a conference, or maybe couldn't afford to, because sometimes we have to buy tickets to our conferences. So there was a sense of like, we have to make worship accessible to people. Didn't really know what that looked like. But eventually we moved to Newcastle. And I went online, started looking for worship leaders, like worship ministries around the area. And I connected with the guys up there from Burn 24/7, which is a global worship movement. It's now called Worship 24/7 in the UK. And I went to one of their events. We spent a few hours worshiping in the leader's home. And then we moved to the city centre in Durham. And to be honest, when they said we're going to the city centre to worship, my first instinct was, that's not for me. Thank you very much. Never seen it before. Felt a bit awkward. But I thought I'll give it a go. I'll help them out. I'll help them set up their equipment for them. Be nice about it. But then my plan was just to go home. I was one of the last to leave that night. I was just like just enamored with what was going on. People were leading worship. There was kind of guys on mics and amplified guitars and things. And what I saw was people stopping to listen to the worship. Then there was a team of people praying for those who wanted prayer, or chatting to people, those who wanted to know more. And we went on till about 11 o'clock at night. And as I say, I was one of the last ones there. And when there was one moment in that when the last guy was leading worship, and I felt God really clearly say, "That's what I want you to do, Aaron." And again, my instinct was like, "What? That is not a job. I'm looking for a job. Gosh, this isn't a thing. I don't know. Yeah, it just doesn't seem right." But I kind of held it, took it to my wife Rachel, and just said, "I think this is what God wants me to do." So she's really supportive, like full of faith, and was just like, "Let's just continue praying about it and see where this leads." And I said to God, it looks like a great idea. But I don't want to base my life on a good idea. I want it to be based on your word. And so I've got a strong foundation to stand on. And so I prayed and read the scriptures. And then one day I came across Psalm 40, verse 3. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God, and many will see and fear and put their trust in the Lord. And straight away I saw the marriage between worship and evangelism in that one verse. And David knew that, his praise, his worship would have impact on those who don't know Jesus to help them come to know him. And that's how Worship on the Street started.
Yeah, and then it's been, over a 10-year journey now. You must have been quite apprehensive at first, but you had these confirmations from God that it was a calling that he'd put upon you. So talk to us a bit about the journey that you've been on with Worship on the Streets and some of the fruit that you've seen as a result of stepping out in faith.
Yeah, so totally. When I first started going on the streets, I was terrified, to be honest. I had some days where I was really excited, full of faith, and a lot of the days I was scared. There were sometimes I went down into the city centre in Newcastle at that time, set up, and then just thought, God, I can't do this, and just go straight home without playing a single song. So I did a year by myself like that. Sometimes were great, sometimes really bad. And then God brought some people around me from the church that I was going to at that point who really understood it, wanted to get involved, both on the streets, but also supported me from an accountability point of view. People who are more experienced, older, wiser, but full of faith and passion for what I was doing. So God brought these amazing people around me who are still involved in the ministry 10 years on. The team started forming. A lady started singing alongside me. People started joining the evangelism team, started praying for people, and it was just a really exciting time where God brought the right people at the right time, and we started doing it around Newcastle. But then the sense of opening up opportunities around Northumberland as well, supporting local churches where maybe few in number but full of faith, again wanting to do mission but didn't know how, so doing some mission alongside them. People who started getting a vision for street worship but again didn't have maybe experience joined us, and so we were part of equipping them, teaching them about what we've been doing. So the team grew, the opportunities grew, and I think there's lots of stories I could share. One in particular that comes to mind, where I try to be quite sensitive to the Holy Spirit when I'm leading worship. I always start with 10,000 Reasons. That's just something I've chosen to do. It's my favorite worship song, very worshipful. It gets me in the zone, if you like, helps me connect to God. But then from that point on, I try to listen to God. God, what song do you want me to sing next? And there was one time where I felt him say, "Sing How Great Thou Art." So I just started singing it. I always start with the chorus, and then probably within about a minute, a lady stopped walking past us and came really close, probably a couple of meters away, and I could see she started crying. So I carried on with the song, and then when the song finished, I just asked, "Are you okay? Just wanted to check in with you." And it turns out that was a song that she had sung at her mum's funeral, and it really meant a lot to her. So I was able to share with her after she shared about her story, just say, when I'm doing this, I always ask God, what song do you want me to sing? So I really believe that God wanted you to hear that song, and just as a sign of his care for you. And we got to share the gospel and pray with her. And that's the kind of thing we see over and over again, God connecting with people through the songs. So it's a beautiful thing to be a part of.
Definitely. And I'm sure many other stories over the initial times of building up a team and people stepping out in faith and seeing how it's working and the impact that it's having. I'm conscious there are probably people listening this morning that will be thinking, well, I'm not talented when it comes to leading worship. So what would my part be if there was a local group near me that were going out to worship on the streets? How could I potentially be involved?
Yeah, so I think one of the best things about worship in the streets is there seems to be room for everybody who wants to be involved. So there is that musical element to it, which is the main thrust of what we do. But what we find is there are people who want to be involved, who are really good at chatting to people or really good with praying for people. We've had artists come alongside us painting while the music is happening. So that's just on the streets. We partner with people like Healing on the Streets sometimes. The street pastors, we've done things with them as well. So it's almost like the worship provides a canopy in which other ministries, other giftings, other callings can sit under. And it seems they all just blend together, almost like kingdom chemistry, we call it. This is an amazing thing that happens. And obviously there's behind the scenes stuff as well. Prayer, people praying for us, people supporting financially, whatever it looks like, whatever you need locally, people, mentors, accountability teams. There's just a room for everybody in these kind of ministries, and it's really exciting to see. So, yeah.
So things have been building up pretty well while you guys were based up in the northeast, but then you end up relocating to the Peak District. So I have to ask, why the change of location?
Yeah, we had a sense from God that it was the right time to leave after about 10 years in Newcastle. But it was a bit of like an Abraham call. He was telling us to go, but not telling us where to. So what we did, we ended up buying a caravan, doing it up and living in a caravan for 3 months, traveling around England, doing a bit of a Worship on the Streets tour, but also looking for a place to live. And the Peak District was the last place we had on our tour. We got some lifelong friends here, so we knew the area. And when we were here, we just knew this was the right place to be. There was just a real peace about this is the place where we're going to live. And it's been really exciting, as well as a change of kind of lifestyle, a change of home and everything. There was a change in focus on ministry as well. I still lead worship on the streets with some 24/7 guys. There's a base here, which is really exciting. And we were out on the streets yesterday. But God also kind of shifted the focus to start equipping people with street worship now. And that was always part of the vision from 10 years ago. I knew God was going to call me to it, but we didn't know really what it looked like. But when we moved here, it was really clear that he wanted us to start this like online community. So we call it the Worship on the Streets Hub. It's hosted by other street worship ministries from around the UK. There's 5 ministries represented. And we provide just an online space for people who at any stage in their street worship journey, whether maybe they haven't even started. We've got some people who've never started yet, but just feel that God is calling them to do it. So everybody is welcome. And then we've got people who have really experienced, who've done it for years. And it's really a space to learn together. It's very much we're in this boat together. Let's learn. We understand that everybody gets a good glimpse of what God is doing. And at the moment, it's really exciting to see so much street worship happening around the UK. So let's all get together, share what we're learning, share what we're seeing, testimonies, and let's pray together. Let's support each other and let's encourage each other in our journeys.
Yeah, let's absolutely do that. Now, I'm going to be cheeky because I'm interested in a little more of the detail of how this works, because I would imagine you can't just rock up anywhere you want with a guitar or a keyboard with batteries in and just go for it. There are probably some logistics around this. So in terms of having permission to go and worship on the streets, how does that all work?
Yeah, so we always recommend check your local council first, because this would come under busking. So check the guidelines. Most places actually you're allowed to go into town or city centre without a permit. So that's a generalisation. So we do say check where you are. Places like London, obviously, I think Manchester as well, you do need a permit, but just double check all that. And then, yeah, we always say just be mindful of the people around you. Find a place where you're not going to compete with big issue sellers or people who are trying to raise money for charities or market stalls. Obviously, it's Christmas at the moment. There's loads of Christmas markets. So we were out yesterday and it took us about half an hour to find the right spot, because everywhere's full of markets and, it's their business. We don't want to interfere with that. So there are some logistics like that. Think about things like, are there seats nearby? So we always try to go places where there's seats so people can stop, sit down and listen. Our flavor of worship, if you like, is quite peaceful, it's quite restful, so we want that place where people can be reflective. Look for walkways, make sure you're not blocking any walkways, make sure you're not near the shops where they're going to interfere with their business again, that kind of thing.
So you've been developing the Worship on the Streets Hub, which is equipping more people to do this on a national scale. As you've said, partnering with five different street worship ministries that are already established. But the other thing that we've not mentioned as yet is that you guys run two national days of street worship. And there's an
Mm.
opportunity coming up in just 10 days for those people who are listening, or for you to tell other people about this, for us to get involved in worshipping on the streets this Christmas time. So tell us what's on the horizon.
Yeah, so it's really exciting. I guess the vision for this is recognizing two things. Firstly, that there is a movement of street worship happening around the world, but particularly around the UK at the moment. It's amazing to hear how many people God is speaking to, saying, get out into the streets to worship. So with that, there's a sense of let's build unity within this movement, that when we stand together, we stand stronger. And so let's get relationships connecting, let's get people supporting each other, to bring some shape to what's happening, really. And the second thing is, again, because God is speaking to people, kind of calling them out into the streets, we recognize, just like it was for me, it's quite scary to go out in your streets, whether you're by yourself or with other people. It's a vulnerability there. So we thought, well, let's organize these days where we can build that unity. We're saying we're all going to go out on the same day, but in different locations around the UK. We're going to start at the same time at 12 o'clock, and we're going to start by singing the same song, the sense of like united act of worship to Jesus, and we're going to stand together as we worship him. But also, hopefully, for people who are sensing they want to give it a go, it's almost like giving the permission to say, yeah, I'm going to go for this, and I know people around the country are doing it with me. So we do it one in the summer, where we always start with the song "The Blessing" as a kind of declaration of God's love over the UK, and then at Christmas time, this one is Saturday the 13th of December at 12 o'clock, and we're asking people to start with a "Come All Ye Faithful," again, kind of an invitational worship song to invite the nation to come and worship Jesus.
And actually, that's something I hate to say that we can get away with, but it's a lot easier to maybe start for the first time at Christmas, because there's an expectation people are going to be singing Christmas carols. But once you've sung "O Come All Ye Faithful," hey, who knows where God might lead you in terms of what songs to sing in your local area. You might be feeling stirred that this is something that you want to get involved in. Well, you can find out more by heading to the website worshiponthestreets.co.uk. But this Worship on the Streets Christmas Busk is happening, as Aaron said, on Saturday the 13th of December. So you've got 10 days to prepare, starting at midday with the singing of "O Come All Ye Faithful." It sounds incredibly exciting, and I'm expecting to hear more of what God is doing as people step out in faithfulness. You can also find Worship on the Streets UK on Instagram, at Worship on the Streets on YouTube, and Worship on the Streets on Facebook as well. If you'd like to connect with Aaron, especially if you're passionate and want to get involved with this National Day of Street Worship on Saturday, the 13th of December, then do get in touch with me and I'll make sure that I connect you with Aaron. But a worship song that really declares what this is all about is going to take us to the latest UCB news with Rob Westall. Open up the doors and let the music play are just some of the lyrics from Delirious. It's Did You Feel the Mountains Tremble?